AI image generation has taken over in the last few weeks, with every AI tool out there promoting their version of it. Most aren't half bad, but none can seem to catch up to the juggernaut in the AI art space that is Midjourney. In this video, we will go over all the fundamentals and basics of Midjourney to give you all the knowledge and wisdom needed to get started, as well as lay the foundation for the advanced usage in later videos. We'll walk through 3 different prompts in this section, looking at all the basic controls that we can use to manipulate images through Midjourney without making too many edits to our actual prompts yet. Okay, let's begin. I'll type in my first prompt. /imagine an oil painting of a robin perched on a branch, and wait for the AI to generate it. After less than a minute, we went from just a few words into this. Not half bad. I actually think some of these are print-worthy images that we could sell on Etsy right out of the box. In particular, I really like the top right image and the bottom right image, which Midjourney considers 2 and 4. Take a look at this key to understand how Midjourney numbers each image in the 4 it generates. Based on my favorites, I'll click Upscale 2 and Upscale 4 to upscale my 2 winners. Now, within about a second, we have a slightly upscaled version of these 2 solo images. Let's focus on image number 4. I really like this one, but I want to see what else we can get. So I'll click Very Subtle and Very Strong to generate some similar, but ultimately different new images. While we're at it, let's see how this one looks upscaled. So I'll click Upscale Creative, then Upscale Subtle to generate my higher quality images. Since we're waiting for our output, let's go back to image number 2 and take a look at what we've got. I really love this design too. However, I see that the bird's foot just has a little bit of a strange look to it. In other AI image tools, we would have hit a dead end here, but for Midjourney, this is no problem. We can simply leverage the Vary Region tool, which opens up an editor for the image where we can highlight the region we want to be varied and regenerated from scratch, and then hit Submit. Now that we've ran all our commands, let's take a look at the output Midjourney generated and break down exactly what each of those actions did based on the original image. Starting with Very Subtle, we can see that we got 4 images that might look the same from the outside, but if we zoom in, we can see some subtle differences. Very Subtle creates 4 of almost entirely identical images with just very small differences like textures, brushstrokes, and slight adjustments to the subject and background. Now, if we took a look at the Very Strong by comparison, we can see some pretty stark contrast between the 4 results. It's obviously the same sort of subject and style as our original, but this action resulted in 4 entirely different paintings altogether. Very Subtle is great when your prompt is almost perfect, but you just need to fine-tune a small detail or 2. Whereas Very Strong is great for when the prompt we generated was right on the right track, but we don't love the end result, so we essentially want to try generating that same image again. Now, let's take a look at the 2 upscaled results, starting with Upscale Creative. Upscaling will essentially quadruple the pixel count within a given image, and Midjourney has a very unique and creative feature that allows the AI to take some creative freedom when upscaling. Take a look at the end result. It's obviously the same painting we started with, but I think you'll find that there are some noticeable differences. Let's compare this to what we got from Upscale Subtle, which is a less creative, more direct upscaling of the image we started with. If we compare the 2, right away we can see how huge these differences are. The creative painting is much smoother, as if it were painted with a very thin brushstroke. There are subtle differences in the background too, and the texture of the image as a whole is almost entirely different. Probably 8 or 9 times out of 10, I end up preferring the Upscale Subtle result over the creative. I personally like the broad brushstroke look, and a lot of times creative upscaling will do what it did here, where it removes that thick texture and smooths or flattens the image out a little bit. Not to say some creative upscales don't actually end up even better than the subtle upscale, however. Now, let's go back to what we did with that image number 2 that we upscaled originally. We did a Vary Region on the foot, so let's check out what the AI gave us as a result. Looking at these generations, almost every one is an improvement from the original in my opinion. In fact, let me layer all of these over the original painting to show just how pinpointed Midjourney gets with these Vary Region generations. As you're seeing these results, just think of the capabilities of this feature. Now, let's go back to our Robin close-up and explore a few other Midjourney features that we can use to modify any given image. These are not as popular as the fundamental features we covered, but they can give some pretty cool and creative output if you know how to use them. In order to get that full effect, let's run down the line and submit each one of those extra actions. So we'll click the zoom out 2x button, zoom out 1.5x, then each of the pan directions. So pan left, pan right, pan up, and pan down. While we wait for these to generate, I will note that these actions are some of the newest to be added to Midjourney. They were only released in the last year. And also, I just want to express some gratitude for this technology and how far it's come. I don't think anyone would have expected that prompt-based image generation would have come as far as it has in the last 2 years. And the fact that we can all have access to it for low cost is extremely powerful. This tech isn't going away, so the fact that you're here gaining skills on how to use it will be a huge piece of leverage as time goes on. All that to say, AI is slowly changing the world. And in keeping with that theme, let's get back to Midjourney art generations. Let's start by analyzing the 2x zoom result. These turned out exactly how one would have expected. It's our same painting of the robin, just zoomed out twice as far. Most ended up looking pretty solid, although the top one definitely took some creative liberties. Let's compare these to the 1.5x zoom outs. I like these a little bit better. They're much closer to our original image with just a bit more room to breathe. But for this image in particular, it didn't add anything mind-blowing. Next, we will look at the results of our pan actions, starting with pan left. These results are exactly what you would expect as well. They take our original image one for one and just add a newly generated piece to the image in that given direction. So here's how that turned out for pan left. And here's our result for pan right. Then pan up, and finally, pan down. We can tell that Midjourney took some key elements from the edges of the original and expanded on them. For example, in pan right, it took those red and orange highlights and ran with it. However, if we were to redo that pan right, we'd actually get 4 entirely new images compared to these 4. Every time we use this feature, Midjourney does the generating completely from scratch, so no 2 results are ever exactly the same. And that even goes for varying and upscaling as well, even if the differences are extremely subtle. Okay, so I think we get the picture for the basic portrait prompt like our little robin here. But let's try something with a little more detail. Let's create a new print that depicts a bustling city street to see how the AI handles a more complicated design. I'll go back into our chat box and type /imagine an oil painting of a vintage bustling market square and hit enter. In less than a minute, Midjourney shoots out our 4 concepts. Oh yeah, these are much more intricate. In fact, our style level has been at medium this whole time, but the AI still gave these prints a ton of depth. Let's go with the bottom right image, so image number 4. Right away, I want to jump into what we can do with these new Midjourney commands. So I'll click zoom out 2x, pan left, and pan down to see what we can get. Unlike that robin portrait, Midjourney will now be tasked with adding entirely new scenes and subjects to our designs, not just a continuous background like before. So let's see how it does. We'll start by looking at the zoom out 2x designs. Dang, look at this. Midjourney stayed true to its word and gave us that same bustling city square, but now viewed through sort of a fisheye lens, with even more details and new little characters on the left and right, along with an expansion of the sky on top and the street texture below. Sweet! Now let's check out the pan left output. Oh yeah, I think I like these even better, especially this bottom right one here. It added a ton of depth to the scene and honestly more of a story. For example, it's less noisy and more focused on this little market under these 2 tents. And it took us all of 1 button push to get here. Awesome. Let's finish with a look at the pan down and see how it handled that. Okay, it took a very interesting approach here. It decided to add some chickens in half of these, which is perfect for this vintage market scene, but then one with a bare but more expanded street, and then the last with whatever that is. Midjourney will always try to avoid keeping all 4 generations the same. If it goes in one direction for the first generation, it will tend to go in other directions for the other 3 images, which we can see here with the differences in subject matter that it decided to add. Okay, those prompts we just used were great to explore and experiment with the Midjourney AI, but now let's try a prompt that will generate us something much closer to the digital prints we will place into our mockups and sell to buyers on Etsy. For this prompt, we'll need something longer and a bit more detailed. Let's go with the following. /imagine majestic autumn oak tree close-up oil painting. A close-up view of a grand oak tree in full autumn splendor. Its branches heavy with golden, red, and orange leaves. The textured bark and sprawling roots add depth to the scene, set against a soft, cloudy sky. Fallen leaves blanket the ground in warm tones, creating a peaceful, nostalgic fall atmosphere. Painted in an impressionist style with soft brushstrokes, the oak tree stands as a symbol of autumn's beauty. AR 4x5 S50. A bit long-winded, I know, but in the next videos we'll cover how to get a prompt as detailed as this within seconds using ChatGPT. Additionally, take note that I changed my stylize level to low here, so S50. You can type /settings to open up the settings controller where you can edit these style levels by hand, or you can simply type S50 at the end of the prompt. Okay, let's see what Midjourney generated with our new autumn prompt. As we can see, the AI definitely got the memo about the majestic oak tree. Most of these are great, but I can already see that some are better than others. For example, number 1 here seems to have much better framing and a better background than the rest. So let's upscale that one immediately. From there, let's also see what we can get from very strong, as well as an upscale creative. Then we'll also do a zoom out 2x, a pan right, and a pan up. Okay, after we give the AI a moment to generate these, let's start by checking out the very strong output. I can already see that I like some of these even better than the original. Number 3 and number 4 in particular look great. The trees and the foliage in the middle ground just frame the scene much more nicely than any of the others. So let's upscale both of those. Now let's check out the zoom out 2x's. These didn't turn out quite as well. The way they all ended up framing the tree makes it look a little dark and gloomy and honestly just too busy across the board. But it's still intriguing to see how the AI generated differences in the ground beneath the tree as well as some of the branches near the top. Now we can move to the upscale creative result. I wanted to try this to show what I said earlier. We're doing a creative upscaling like this can be good, but sometimes it smooths out some of the brushstroke detail too much. I don't think this image is particularly bad. In fact, it would most likely get some sales. But for my taste, I think we could get it looking even better by going off some of the results of some of the other variations we used. But before we do that, let's quickly look at the output from our panning actions. Here we can see our pan right. Not bad. Again, almost all of these generations really expanded on the darkness and shadows, which I don't know if I love, but the background trees came out nice. But if we compare that to what we got here with pan up, it seems like we went much further in the wrong direction. These turned out way too busy, and the tight framing doesn't do the addition of all these branches any justice. So I think we'll just skip over this one as well. Okay, let's go back to the 2 images from that very strong that we upscaled earlier. Here's number 3. This one I really like. The framing is great. The tree on the left in the middle ground is looking perfect, where it's just about to touch the leaves of the main oak tree. And in doing so, it perfectly frames those clouds billowing out in the background. Excellent. This print gets an A+. So we will give it the highest form of praise and click Upscale Subtle so we can save it and list it for sale in our shop. Then we can look at the second print from earlier, number 4. I really like this one too, but there are bits and pieces that I love just a little bit less than the one we just upscaled. I like the rocks on the bottom right and that middle ground tree on the right, but the clouds aren't as detailed and the foliage on the left is a little more noisy. But all in all, it's not horrible. So for this one, I'll upscale subtle it as well, but also creative upscale it too, as a last ditch effort to see if we can improve the design. After we take a second to let those images upscale, we can go back and check out our finished products. As expected, our upscale subtle of number 3 is pristine. Everything upscaled perfectly and it looks just as good or better than it ever did before. This is definitely a winning print for autumn. We won't cover it in this video, but the next steps would be to open the image in the browser, right-click, and save it to our designs folder. Then we would run it through all of our mockups, crop the image into our 5 frame-ready aspect ratios, generate a title and tags for our design, and post all of that to Etsy as a brand new listing. All of that is actually a lot simpler than it sounds, and can almost entirely be done with automation. I'll walk through those steps in detail in the following videos, so consider liking and subscribing if you're interested or if you've gotten any value from this video. Let's finish by checking on the upscales of image number 4. If we look at the upscale subtle, I actually am finding that I don't dislike it as much as I thought I did. I think it has some interesting contrast from our winning print. So maybe if I were to create a print bundle of autumn trees, I'd include this one in there. Let's see if the upscale creative turned out any better. Okay, this one gave some interesting results. We can see that it definitely took its creative liberties on the rock on the right, and in general, it made the texture a little muddier than the subtle version. I think I'd still use the subtle version if I were to go with this print in particular. But I'm happy I took a chance on creative to see how it did. There are times where the creative upscale will provide some gems. Okay, that does it for this video on Midjourney basics. I know that was probably a lot to take in, but don't worry. These little adjustments become second nature extremely quickly after you get your hands on Midjourney and start creating designs. And in the case of the oak tree, you can see how it's actually pretty straightforward to get an A+ design. In that case, we just entered our prompt and did a very strong on one of the original images to get our winner. But there are also a lot of times where I end up with A+ images right from the first generation. If you enjoyed this content or found any information valuable, consider liking or subscribing, but of course you don't have to. I'll be making another video soon to go over the subject again, but at a much deeper level with way more advanced tips and tricks, as well as how to use ChatGPT to get hundreds of A+ level prompts automatically in seconds. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.